Okay. It is 6:01, and the meeting is called to order. I'm going to do roll call. Espino. Present. Lang is absent. Mencia.
Present.
Petrielli present. Reed is absent. Sager.
Present.
And Schumacher.
Schumacher's present.
Now we'll rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just remember to hit the green button when you talk.
All right.
Then the microphone. There it is.
We're going to start with the presentation about the back-to-school plan. Katie, is that you? Oh, it is you. Okay. Dr. Bresserhan, take it away.
So thank you. Welcome, audience members, and thank you to our Board of Education. Tonight, we wanted the opportunity to be able to share the highlights of our return to school plan. We appreciate everyone's patience as we have really spent a lot of time, given a lot of thought, reviewed a tremendous amount of guidance to really carefully put together this plan so that hopefully when we open schools, we can stay open and welcome all of our students back for in-person learning. So I want to thank our administrative team for all the work that they have done, the hours of reviewing guidance and really being very thoughtful and mindful. I want to especially thank all of our parents, our family members who have reached out and provided their input and their feedback. Thank you to all the parents and families that are, and our students especially who are here this evening. I want to thank our Board of Education for their time and careful review of all of the information that has been shared. The guidance is ever changing, and it started on July 9th, and here we are less than a month later with new guidance just issued today. So again, we appreciate everyone's patience. We are going to ask that we hold all questions from the board until the end of the presentation, and then we will have an opportunity for public comment. But we appreciate everyone being informed, and hopefully the answers to many questions will be provided throughout the presentation. So an overview of what our presentation tonight includes. We are going to talk briefly about the guidance and where that guidance comes from, as well as really looking at our local health metrics, which really are the driving factors for our decisions. We want to talk about what our purpose is, what our focus and goal is for returning to school this year. And then we want to dive a little deeper into our mitigation strategies and give a pretty in-depth review of our quarantine protocols and the guidance, because as we know, that is the one factor that takes our students out of school. So we want to be very clear and informed about what those protocols and procedures are. And then we want to hopefully shift and talk about our focus on learning, which is why we exist and why we are here. So hopefully we can really shift our focus to back on learning, and then end with talking about our commitment to continued communication. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lula for talking about our guidance and from our local health metrics.
Thank you, Dr. Bresnahan. Yes, my focus tonight is just to walk through some of the data we have and the guidance that's come through, especially these last few weeks. So this piece, as I'm sure you all know, from last year, Illinois currently is in phase 5. We have been in phase 5 for an extended period of time, and basically things are as back to normal as possible. I think the important piece to know about the phase 5 piece is that that last piece where it talks about schools and places of recreation can open with new safety guidance and procedures. So that's been something we've been receiving all summer. We actually received some updated information from IDPH and ISBE today in relation to the FAQ document that they've distributed throughout the summer, and really the update just aligns fully to the CDC recommendation that was released last week on the 27th. Throughout the summer, IDPH and ISB have been basically adopting the CDC guidance in full as soon as it's released. This last piece from CCDPH, that's the Cook County Department of Public Health, what was interesting with that, while not released in a massive thing in the press, as school districts have studied it, found that last sentence where it talked about the use of should in the guidance, that's referring to the CDC guidance, does not imply that the strategy is optional. And I know that's caused a lot of school districts to consider their plans as previously should was interpreted as optional. At least this is from the Cook County Department of Public Health. And then finally, something we did all of last year and will just recently started up in July, we track our local data. So this website that Northwestern put together last summer really takes the daily data related to testing, COVID testing, and turns it into where you can see what your local school or zip code community data looks like. So we've started tracking and accumulating that data. This is the last 5 days of available data. As things have changed, they're no longer updating the site every day, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. So that data accumulates. It should be in by midweek, and we'll update again. But this shows where we're at currently. This is related to the CDC thresholds. IDPH previously last year had some different numbers, but low transmission is less than 5% positivity rate and basically under 10 per 100,000 incident rate. So you can see over these last 5 days of reported data, the positivity rates have been in low transmission. I think we've only seen 1 day over the last month that was in the moderate transmission in any of our communities. The per 100,000 rates, that looks a little different. It's been in the moderate, and then these recent into the substantial range. So that's the data. That's where we're at right now. You can see some of those numbers are fluctuating up and down. We'll continue to track those on a daily basis to help inform our practices as we move forward.
Thank you. So before we go into some of the more specific mitigation strategies, we wanted to take an opportunity to really celebrate and highlight a lot of the things that are already a return to typical in a standard school year. So last year, as you know, we were in that hybrid schedule. We had limited in-person learning. Our focus this year and our commitment is to a return to full in-person learning 5 days a week for all of our students. Last year, we weren't able to use our playgrounds and shared equipment. This year, we have a full return to those playgrounds and recess and being able to utilize that. We've already seen it in daily practice at our Ridge School as well. Last year, we weren't able to have visitors and volunteers in our building. This year, we are going to return to that practice, again with some safety protocols, but being able to welcome those people back into our schools. We had very limited, if no, extracurricular activities or our in-person family events. We weren't able to use our lockers, our cubbies, the kids club. We are seeing a return to all of those things for the start of our school year. And again, we're going to continue to monitor the health metrics to ensure that we can do those safely. Last year, we had to do the daily self-certification for all of our students and our staff through an online form. This year, we're continuing to ask all families and staff to monitor for any symptoms, but we are not requiring a daily certification form. The quarantine protocol is an area, and we'll go into more detail later in the presentation, but really that's been a major shift from the Cook County Department of Public Health, who really monitors and manages our quarantine protocols. Last year it was a standard 14-day. This year it's been reduced down to 10 days in specific cases, depending on our mitigation layers, and there may also be some exceptions that we're able to take advantage of this year that would be new. Last year, we had to limit our bus capacity to 50 individuals. Masks were required. This year, the capacity limit based on COVID no longer exists, but masks continue to be required without exception on the bus per CDC. And then we're very excited that we have a full return to our typical hot lunch program and resuming those services for breakfast and lunch for our students that participate in that. So a lot to celebrate, and all of these things right now are currently up and running for the most part in our Ridge Family Center. So the main purpose, our goal, when our administrative team got down to really thinking about what is our purpose and what are we really trying to ensure that we can maintain this year. And that was to open our schools in a safe way, provide the best learning environment that we can, and continue to keep as many students as possible in person. And with that, then we started looking at everything and the impact so that we could be here and discuss it with the board this evening. But this remains our primary goal as we built the plan. So we had to ask ourselves, what does it take to keep our kids in school? And after reviewing all the health guidance from all of the organizations that were shared previously, there are 3 main mitigation factors that have been shown to keep students healthy and in schools. The first being vaccination, the second being the use of masks, and the third being physical distancing. Again, each one in isolation, maybe not be, independently foolproof, but looking at these things in layers is what we hope to be able to achieve in order to keep our students in school. So looking at our mitigation strategies, the first one that we're going to go into detail on is quarantine, because quarantine is what takes our kids out of school and out of in-person learning, and that's what we want to avoid. We do not establish the protocols for quarantine as a school district. The Cook County Department of Public Health actually maintains the authority and the guidance. So when a positive case is shown in our schools, we then contact Cook County Public Health Department. They ask us a series of questions, we provide them with information, and they assist us and tell us what we should do in terms of who should be quarantined and for how long. So again, the things that we have the most impact on as a school district is being able to reduce the likelihood of quarantine using our mitigation strategies. So the new close contact exception is really one of the most significant changes that we're seeing out of the Cook County Department of Public Health, as well as IDPH, as well as CDC. And this is a really important part because remember, 6 feet used to be the golden rule. If you were closer than 6 feet with masks on, you were considered a close contact and therefore led to quarantines. Now what the CDC has shifted to is between 3 and 6 feet. So as long as you're that 3 foot apart, then we're able to look at close contact in a different way. But there's some criteria that have to be met in order to utilize 3 feet. And that means that both students who are engaged in the contact have to be wearing masks. So if one is not wearing a mask and one is wearing a mask, both students are now considered close contacts. And we'll get more into details of examples of how that works. But that's a really key piece that we had to sit with and digest and really understand as we were looking at the impact of the decisions. Then we also have to look at our other mitigation and prevention strategies and ensuring that those were in place in order to take advantage of this exception. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ossel, who's going to walk us through some more specifics around quarantining and close contacts.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask that we, figuratively speaking, move into a District 59 classroom. So as you can see in our visual, this represents a classroom with 20 students. And one of those students, shown in orange, is a student with a positive COVID-19 case. In this classroom, our students are 3 feet apart. And we have been notified that we have a positive case, so that child is going to go home into isolation immediately, and our job will be to contact trace and determine if there are any students who were in close contact who will now need to quarantine. When we do that, in a situation where everyone in school is in masks, we have 2 main factors that we need to look at. We first determine what students or staff were within 6 feet. Then we need to determine if any are fully vaccinated. If they are, they will not quarantine. If they are not fully vaccinated, we need to determine if they are going to meet the criteria for the close contact exception. So we're looking at, were they at least 3 feet apart? If they were not able to maintain 3 feet apart and be fully masked, there would be quarantines, which means that those people in close contact would be staying home for at least 10 days. If they were able to maintain 3 feet apart and all were fully masked, there would be no quarantines, and we would ask those close contacts to monitor their symptoms for the next 14 days while they attended school. When masks are optional, we introduce another factor. We now need to determine for close contacts if any were fully vaccinated, and again, they would not quarantine. Then we need to determine, was the close contact at least 3 feet apart? If the answer is no, they would quarantine. If the answer is yes, we now need to look at were both people fully masked. Was the person who had COVID fully masked, and was the person in close contact fully masked? If that answer is yes, there may be no quarantines, and they would monitor symptoms. If that answer is no, there would be quarantines, and that quarantine would be 10 days out of school. So we have a different number of factors that we're looking at depending on if we are fully masked or not. So let's look at what this decision-making looks like in our classes. And again, this is a class of 20. That's not how all of our classes will look, but for the purpose of demonstrating quarantine situations, that is our setup for tonight. They are 3 feet apart, and we have one positive case, again indicated by the orange. You can see that all of these students are fully masked. In this case, everyone qualifies for the close contact exception. Because they are 3 feet apart, because the close contacts are fully masked, and because the person who's COVID positive is fully masked, there will be no quarantines in this situation. The student who is positive will go home into isolation immediately. Now moving into our next situation. Here in our same classroom, we have optional masking. You can see that our student who is COVID positive has their mask on. You can see students around that are in close contact. Some have masks, some do not, representing a mask optional setting. In this case, we have several students who do not meet the criteria for the exception that would need to quarantine. So our student who is COVID positive would go home, as well as the 4 other students who are not wearing masks, and they would need to quarantine for at least 10 days. Now let's look at the same situation with one change. In this scenario, the student who is COVID positive is no longer wearing a mask. Because we cannot guarantee that both the COVID positive person and those in close contact are all fully masked, regardless of whether students chose to wear a mask or not, all students would need to quarantine. So everyone within 6 feet in this situation will need to go home for at least 10 days because we cannot guarantee that the person who is COVID positive and all others were fully masked. Now we're going to introduce another mitigating factor. We heard Dr. Bresnahan talk about 3 things: our vaccines, our physical distancing, and our masking. So now if we introduce vaccines into our classrooms, which this would represent our junior high classrooms where we have many students who are 12 and older and eligible to get a vaccine, that also impacts who would quarantine and who would not. You can see in our graphic that students who have their vaccines have their I got my COVID-19 vaccine sticker on their shoulder. They are in gray here. We have students who are masked, and we have a student who has no mask, and our student who's positive has their mask on.
Dr. Russell, if I could just pause 1 second.
Please.
This is just for the visual. We are not planning on identifying in any way our students, whether they are vaccinated or not. This is purely for the visual on the screen. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Russell. Continue.
Of course. So in this case, the students who have their vaccines do not need to quarantine. Anyone who is vaccinated will not need to quarantine for close contact. We have several students with their masks on, and our student who's COVID positive has their mask on, so those students will not need to quarantine either. However, we have one student who is not fully masked. That student would quarantine for 10 days. So in this case, our student who's COVID positive goes home, as well as one other student who did not meet the exception of being fully masked and 3 feet apart. And in our final scenario, we look to a time when vaccines will be more widely available. As I said, right now we have vaccines optional for those who are 12 and up. We know that hopefully this fall, maybe this winter, we will have vaccines optional for younger children. And at that time, we may see ourselves in this situation in which we have one student who's COVID positive. Everyone around that student has their vaccine, so regardless of mask status, none of them will need to quarantine. Our role right now is balancing our 3 major mitigating strategies: physical distance, vaccines, and masks. Some are more in our control than others. We cannot control when approval comes for younger students for vaccines, but we can make our decisions regarding masking and physical distance, which we will maximize to the fullest extent. These are all the scenarios I have for us tonight, and before I conclude, I want to remind everybody that these are generalities. When we contact Trace, we work with our local health department, and we review everything on a case-by-case basis. We look at all individual factors and work with them to make our final decisions. Hopefully, these visuals were helpful in demonstrating the impact of various mitigating strategies on our student quarantines.
Thank you, Dr. Ossel. So in looking at this based on the scenarios and going back to our primary goal, which is to have students return to full in-person learning and then stay in school for in-person learning, it is really important. It is really important that we look at the layers of mitigation, because no one strategy by itself is going to be foolproof. But when we look at layers, that's where we can really get a more robust opportunity to keep our kids in schools. This is based on the CDC guidance, which has been fully adopted by ISB, as well as IDPH, as well as our Cook County Public Health Department. So the recommendation from CDC and those other organizations is for masking for all individuals regardless of vaccination status when inside school buildings. A key factor, and the return this year to a little more typical, is that masks will be optional while they are outdoors. So students have been already very well adapted to that procedure over at Ridge, and having that opportunity to have mask breaks when they're outside, as well as when they are eating. Physical distancing continues to be one of the factors that we try do the best possible of keeping students at least 3 feet apart while indoors, 6 feet while eating. Again, that's to reduce and prevent as many quarantines as possible. The next layer is COVID testing, which we have not fully implemented or begun to implement, but at this point we are working with an organization called Shield Illinois. Many districts throughout Illinois began using this testing protocol in the spring. It is available to schools at no charge, and it is available to all students and staff who are unvaccinated. And they actually have staff that come in and are able to run the testing protocols within a school with minimal use of District 59 staff. So we are in the process of looking at adding those layers and exploring options to provide that. No testing would be done on a child without explicit parent or guardian permission. Hand sanitizing and washing, we know that that continues to be one of the best ways to keep ourselves healthy, not just for COVID, but in general. So we continue to provide those opportunities, as well as maintaining our high level of cleaning procedures that we had in place. And then also important to note is our air quality. We have one of the highest rated level filtration systems in our buildings for our filters. And we also had an extensive amount of upgrades done to our HVAC systems to also help improve airflow and air quality in all of our schools. The most important thing is that a lot changes, and it changes very quickly. So as Mr. Ludloff had shared earlier, it's really important that we continue to monitor our guidance, not make rash or rush decisions, but to really be reflective and look at how can we begin to reduce our mitigation strategies. And that really means that we need to look at our current guidance from our local health department. We need to watch for improving trends in our health metrics. We also want to monitor how many people are we able to have participate in our screening or diagnostic COVID testing. And then also look at what opportunities can we provide and what are the rates of participation for the vaccinations as they are available and as future availability presents itself. So we will continue to monitor and adapt, and that's why this plan is designed to get us open, get us into the start of school, let us have a return to full in-person learning, because the last day we had full in-person learning was in March of 2020. And so that opportunity to have our staff open our schools, know that we're doing it in the safest way possible is of vital importance to us as an administrative team and for our staff. And all of this is so that we can focus back on learning. Our students had a very disrupted year last year. And we want to make sure that we're able to really look at what did they learn, what didn't they learn, and how can we accelerate that learning to make up for some lost time and really bring our attention back to in-person learning. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Savage for our plan on our acceleration of learning.
Thank you, Dr. Bresnahan. That is indeed the case, that we're really focusing on that in-person, full instruction. And in order to look at what that looks like in our district, we have sort of the what and the how that we're putting in place. The curriculum has been revised, and it's focused on the essential learning targets that are included in all of our scope and sequences for staff to access. In addition, we have adopted the illustrative math curricular resource that also aligns and has been connected to the essential targets. So they're in order for the teachers to use, and they're ready to go. In addition, we've also been focusing on our K2 foundational skills scope and sequence so that we are providing explicit instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics in those primary areas. So that's the what in general. It's much broader, but that gives you a little update of what that looks like. Then I like to look at the how. How are we putting this in place? And that would be the delivery of instruction. We have pacing guidance that is prepared. Teachers will be working with the building designee to make sure that lessons are provided and that those students can keep pace in their learning for the duration of that quarantine. Students will log in and attend, and they must complete their assigned work in order to be marked present for that time.
Thank you, Mrs. Savage. The last piece is just really our commitment to communication, because we know that that really is a fundamental part of how we are going to continue to serve as partners in providing the best education for our students. Guidance with it rapidly changing, we really are committed to ensuring that we provide thoughtful and timely communication, as well as opportunities for our families to provide input and feedback back to the schools so that, again, we can serve as partners in creating the healthiest environment possible for our students. And with that, I will open it up to our board for questions and feedback.
I already had one of my questions answered. I was wondering about how they were going to keep kids up to speed. I have a question about the scheduling for the math, the junior high level in particular. So are all junior highs going to be on the same kind of scheduling so they're all in sync?
That is a goal this year, to begin planning towards getting them in sync. However, each junior high has a slightly different schedule, with Holmes having the block schedule. But that is one of our goals this year, to begin meeting with all three principals to start look at how can we start moving us along in the same direction.
Just to clarify, if we go with mass, it's going to be required on the bus regardless, right? Or if we go with optional, it's going to be required on the bus. And what are the other instances where the mask would have to come on, or vice versa? Well, let me rephrase it. If we go with masks in the schools, when do they get to take them off during the school day?
Students would be able to take their masks off, of course, when eating. So for our elementary students, breakfast and lunch. For junior high students, breakfast and lunch. And for some of our younger students, snack time. As well as recess and any brain breaks, movement breaks that are taken outside. We are working on tents so we can have snacks outside to give added time for that mask to be off, and added movement for our younger students as well.
And I'll add, one of the strategies that was already implemented at Ridge is if students do feel that they need a break from their masks, they can indicate that to their teacher and have opportunities in the school day to take those breaks as needed.
First of all, I had a family emergency. Sorry I'm delayed on this, and I kind of missed part of the presentation. Did we go over the social distancing with the mask versus non-masks? Okay. Were there any questions on that? Because that's the part that I'm most concerned with and still kind of confused with. If you're both wearing masks and 3 feet apart, no quarantine. If one is wearing a mask and one is maskless, it's then 6 feet for those getting quarantined.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the quarantine is 10 days. That's 10 days, calendar days, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the next question I had related to that is, with the shield, which I missed at the tail end of that, if kids, we're not testing those kids that are in quarantine with the shield, are they? Those kids will not be tested?
No, right now we are looking at testing any unvaccinated students that their parents have given consent weekly.
Okay, but families would not have the opportunity to use the shield for a possible negative test to come into schools?
We are looking into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I could also clarify on that point. So right now, last year we did not have the option or ability to do any testing in the school. Some of the districts did, we did not. Right now it's proposed that we would have SHIELD, which is the testing. That's what we're talking about. When we say SHIELD, we're talking about the testing. And it is a saliva test, right? We are not sticking anything in anyone's noses or anything. It is a saliva test that would be voluntary. Parents could opt in. They could choose to do it. And then if they do, can you walk us through that process of how long it takes for us to get that information?
Sure. So the SHIELD Illinois test, as you said, is a saliva-based test. There is no nose swab of any kind. It is a PCR test, and it's a 3-gene test, which means it can detect some variants. So as they would say, it is the gold standard of COVID-19 tests. In this system, they would have staff designated for our buildings that would come in once a week. The staff would move classroom to classroom with very small vials, and students would one at a time come out of the class. They would just deposit their saliva into the vial. They would check ID numbers or QR codes to make sure it's the right child, the right vial. They hand it to the Shield, Illinois staff. That staff then transports it to a lab. There are several in the Chicagoland area. Once it is at the lab, they report that it's processed within 5 hours, and that the reports are guaranteed back within 24 hours, but at this time, they're all being returned in less than 12 hours. That is the goal, so that we are notified of any positive cases prior to the start of the next school day, and we can make sure that students or staff are staying home as needed.
So it would be for only for unvaccinated kids, so ideally a majority of K through 12 could opt in to do it. If they do it, they spit into a little vial, they get the test, we get the results back, who contacts the parent?
There are two options or a combined option. So we can have Shield, Illinois staff and laboratory staff contact parents directly. They are also working on a parent portal right now, which should be up and running in September, in which parents can establish a login, and they can log in weekly to see test results. We also, our nurses would also be notified of test results. We would maintain confidentiality, of course, but as there's a positive result, that nurse would then contact the family for follow-up instructions and coordination with the local health department.
And then to follow up on that too. So we have this new option that may be available to us to monitor that type of data. On the opposite end of the spectrum with the older kids, junior high, older than 12, that may have already been vaccinated. Are we requesting vaccination records from students that are vaccinated? Are we able to track who has and who has not, what that percentage is?
We are. We have been discussing communications for that. We discussed that today. We will be collecting that information because it assists us with the contact tracing purposes primarily. As you saw today, when we know who's vaccinated and not vaccinated among our students, we're able to more quickly assess and make sure that we have students that need to be quarantined, or more importantly, make sure that we are staying in school when we can.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but we do require a mask when there are students in the boardroom with us, so please, can you please put your masks on? We're not going to put our, well, if we're not going to put our mask on, I'm going to call a recess then. We'll be recessing for about 15 minutes. There is a sign-up list. We have 3 names. As was stated in the beginning of the meeting, we're going to be limiting comments to 1 hour. And it'll become, we'll follow this first, and then we'll take names after that. So before we begin public comment, I have something to read. Okay, so this is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. Although comments may be made on almost any matter related to the operation of schools, comments will not be allowed concerning individual students or staff members. Any comments related to individual students or staff should be addressed in private with the superintendent. Please limit your individual comments to 3 minutes. A board member will serve as timekeeper and will give the speaker notice when there are 30 seconds remaining to allow the speaker appropriate time to complete or summarize their thoughts. The board's attorney has advised the board to maintain a consistent rule regarding the length of time an individual may take to address the board of education. Doing so safeguards the freedom of speech rights of each speaker to be treated equally. If one person is granted additional time, then all speakers henceforth will need to be treated similarly. This is a business meeting of the Board of Education, and the board must conduct its business in public and must complete that business in a timely manner. If you wish to provide written comments to the board, they will be included in the meeting minutes. Such meetings are not held for discussions with the public. While it is the practice of the board not to respond to public questions or comments during the board meeting, board members do listen attentively and carefully and consider the thoughts and topics you present. So that is one item. I want to read one more item related that we came up for tonight. We'd like to thank you, our staff, families, and community members for their continued partnership as the district looks to achieve the safest possible route to have our students return in-person learning without interruption. We thank those of you who are in attendance tonight for your willingness to bring your thoughts and feedback to the board. We want to make sure your voice is heard. Given the scope and importance of the discussion, topic, and decision to be made by the board, we will be limiting our public comment period to 1 hour. We simply ask that you please be respectful while others are speaking, and we also ask that if you feel your point has been made in a similar comment by a prior speaker, that you allow others to speak. This will allow us to hear the greatest possible spectrum of feedback or concerns regarding our return to school plan this evening. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. You got the timer, right?
I have a timer. So then, just so we can clarify and that everybody's clear for everyone that's going to speak, it's going to be 3 minutes per person. I will be keeping time. When you have 30 seconds left, I will probably just go like this and say 30 seconds, just letting you know so that we can get as many people in, so we can hear from as many of you tonight. Okay?
Our first speaker is Kasia Garlevich.
Hi, my name is Kasia Garlevich. Some of you might know my husband, who was on the board last year, so thank you for having me. I think we all can see last year was difficult. This year looks probably as emotional for the parents and kids. So I think what I'd like to say that, you know, last year there was lots of discussion about what's safe, not safe, what's in the news. A lot of articles were read. I don't like that at the board meetings, so I'm glad that went away. But what I like that happened is 5 months into the school year, we let the parents make decisions for the kids to return to school in person. And the parents that they want to didn't return back. So at that point, I thought we looked at the stakeholders, which are our kids, and what's best for them. And I feel like myself as a parent, who's my daughter's coming in as a kindergarten, the other one's in second grade. They need to be in school. I think having the option of making decisions should lie to the parents. I know you're making decisions for the district, but I think having the options as a parent to make these decisions for my child, to wear a mask, not to wear a mask, whatever it is key. And in the future, if things get better with COVID, all that stuff, I want to make sure we continue giving the parents the option to make decisions versus you guys making decisions for the parents. And the kids are it. So I'm not, it's not about mask or no mask. It's about the decision up for our children to the parents. The other option I heard about the testing in school, I'd like to say that if the testing lets us loosen up other restrictions, that's great. But if it doesn't, then I don't want my kids tested. And I know it might be optional, but I'm just seeing a slippery slope. We're going to test. We're going to continue testing forever. Why not, right? Against the flu, against this and that. So I'd like to say if we're going to do more and make sure, and if we're going to have our kids go through more stuff that's probably not as necessary, that it gives them a benefit and not it shows if they're sick or not. So thank you.
The next individual signed up is Joanne Jopek.
Hi, I would like to read a letter that I got from one of the family practice physician to whom it may concern. My name is Joanna Pozdal. I am a family practice physician. My solo practice is in South Barrington. I was asked by my patients' parents who have students in many districts to say a few words on their behalf. I am not a public speaker nor politician. I am a mother and a doctor. I am asking you to use a common sense with asking decisions about mask wearing. I saw how those last 2 years affected my daughter and many other patients. Children became more anxious and withdraw further into themselves, focusing all their energy onto electronics rather than forming relationships with others. Following are the few points to consider. Let children enjoy school without causing additional and unnecessary stress by wearing masks. Some kids already have anxiety problems, so facing them in an environment where everybody wears a mask creates even more stress, panic attacks, and such more. All of this decreases a child's ability to learn effectively. At the same time, stress weakens immune system. Children are becoming more vulnerable for infections. Besides, it is well accepted that children have statistically zero chance of dying from COVID. The CDC shows the K through 12 mortality rate is almost nothing. Since children have the lowest death rate of infection, why put masks on and cause other problems? Again, anxiety, headache, skin issues. It is well known that a symptomatic person will not cause an outbreak. It is caused by symptomatic ones. Sick kids are staying home anyway. Also makes a specifically clothed the mask specifically clothed one offer no protection from the virus, so will not prevent its spreading. Instead, being touched many times and becoming wet from exhaled air becomes source of other infections. Children need to build their immunity by getting contact with variety of viruses and bacteria. I believe that strong immune system is the key in the fighting with any infections, including COVID. With some help of few supplements like vitamin D, omega-3, probiotics, zinc, children who are happy, enjoy masks-free school are being to fight any infections. The mandatory mouth mask in school is a major threat to the children's development. It ignores the essential needs of a growing child. The well-being of children and young people is highly dependent on the environmental connection with others. We are communicating with each other not only by talking, but also by body language and face emotions. Children need to see those emotions.
Thank you, Joanne. Your time is up.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to forward the letter.
The next speaker is Barbara Palonen.
My name is Barbara Polanin. My daughter is in Friendship Junior High. My daughter was supposed to speak today, but I can't put her in this position
Can you speak in the mic more, please, so you hear you? I'm sorry. Thank you.
to fight for a normal childhood. That's my job. Last year, I was watching my happy daughter sliding into depression and misery. And she's mentally strong girl. She's a state champion in girls wrestling. The only thing that kept her going was continuing her sports, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and swimming, where she could experience the world she used to know among kids whose smiles weren't covered with masks. Hundreds and thousands of kids all the year, all the entire year. Guess how many got sick? 0. All I hear here is masks, vaccine, distancing, testing. Is sickening. Nobody seems to be concerned about the real tragedy of what has happened to our kids last year. Children have become victims of this insanity and nonsense, pawns in this ugly game. All of the students, all of the sudden, the weight of the world got dropped on their shoulders to be responsible for adults and strangers sacrificing their own happiness, health, and life. When I checked last year, the suicide rate in youth jumped up 30%. Even according to CDC, children are at almost 0 risk of getting COVID, and yet adults are conspiring to rob children of another year of what should be a happy, carefree childhood. They only get one chance to be a kid. We all know by now the masks are symbolic, nothing more. By putting masks on children again this fall, we are literally dumping more depression, more misery, more tragedy, and more suffering on them. Honestly, as a parent, I can't believe that I'm standing here explaining that children should go normal to school, be able to breathe
30
freely
seconds.
without a clot across their faces that is silence and dehumanize them. That is ruining our kids' lives. This is so wrong. Please, leave the kids out of this madness. Put first the wants, needs, and dreams of our children. This district serves. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Is this Margarata Loki? Lonska, sorry. What town are you from?
Good evening. I'm sorry.
What town are you from? What town?
Oh, Mount Prospect. My name is Małgorzata Łońska. I think everyone will agree with me that when we first heard about COVID-19, everyone got scared. With time, however, when we start to learn statistics, we find out that the death rate given by CDC is overestimated and kids are not in a risk group. Also, although there is scientific evidence that masks are ineffective, our children are constantly forced to wear them. Everybody likes to talk about following the science, but each time the opinion of independent scientists and doctors are quoted, they are underestimated. What science are you talking about? All government agencies expect us to believe everything without asking questions, even though there is no logic in all of this. The CDC only recommends wearing masks. This is not a requirement. So let the parents decide. We have brains. We know how to do the research. We can think and we are able to make a best decision to our children. I don't know if any of you is aware how many harm all of this has taken on children who are now struggling with various kind of depressions and have started to hate school. The school has become prison for them. This has a huge impact on our children learning outcomes. District 59 motto is preparing students to be successful for life. I'm asking you today, how are you going to do this? How do you want to teach our children not to be afraid of life and teach them to be successful in life without being able to learn normal life in society? Finally, what kind of life you are thinking about? I would also like to say to you today that if School District 59 decide to provide routine COVID tests for unvaccinated students, my children will not participate. My children have suffered enough over the past year, and I will not allow any unfounded and pointless medical procedures against them. This is school, not medical laboratory, and these are our children, not laboratory rats. I also expect that if district decide that our children must wear masks at school, it will also present legal basis consistent with the Constitution of the United States on the basis of which such a decisions are made. Additionally, it will inform the parents about the consequences of non-compliance with the requirements. Parents must have time and the right to consult these opinions with their lawyers and take appropriate steps. Nobody should surprise that the whole
30
situation is compared with the Holocaust more and more often. The Holocaust did not start overnight. It starts step by step with taking people rights to enter parks, stores, and schools. I have always wondered how it was possible that the Holocaust happened and nobody rebelled. Today, when I look at this whole mechanism, I found the answer. The vaccine is generally available for the public. So what's the risk of unmasked children for people who believe in this vaccine? Until when our children be forced to wear masks? Please don't try to push vaccination. Please, 15 more seconds. Please don't try push vaccination agenda to our teenager kids, telling that it's safe. You know this is a lie.
Time.
This will be medical experiment until 2023.
Time, you can submit your letter, and we can put it in the whole notes, we can read the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Vince Dante. I think I got that right. Is it Vince Dante? Yes, sir. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it. I have a document which I'm going to hand over to you guys. This is more specific to the mask itself and not hearsay or media fake news. You know, it's specifically about the masks and the amount of microns as it revolves around the pores in the mask and all that. So it speaks specifically to that. As you already know, my name's Vince Dante. I'm a 20-year plus resident of Mount Prospect, a veteran, a husband, and a father of a child in Forest View. I can respect everybody that's sitting here in their opinions. I have no idea how the world got so polarized. It's absolutely amazing. You know, you're told to wear a mask, not wear a mask, get the shot, don't get the shot, get the shot if it requires two. And then put the masks back on after you do it. You could see how it's a little deceiving, and the information just is constantly contradicting itself. So it's a little tough. As far as as my daughter goes, it seems like between the masks, the CRT, the sexual orientation books for kids from kindergarten to 5th grade or whatever it is, it seems like we are just absolutely taking the innocence out of the children. When I was growing up at that age, I was more worried about how I was going to scrounge up $1 to go find a wiffle ball. Or go to my friend's house to figure out, who's got the best video games. And it just, I think the board's got a big decision to make, and I'm hoping that they can take it all to heart.
30
because
seconds.
you guys were all kids at one time too. And, I just think that it's important to let the little kids be kids and let them prosper and grow the way that they're meant to be. Every one of these parents knows what's best for their children. And we're not saying you don't,
but I think it's important to let us raise our kids the way that we know best. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Brian Forlan.
Hello. Very good. So thanks. Well, welcome, doctor. Just want to say that off the bat. So I'm a parent, 3 kids in 59 right now. Last year was not not a good year in our household. After about a month and a half, I actually had to pull 2 of them out of District 59 to go to remote because remote was just not working. So this year we're coming back. This is before the mask and everything like this, which I think is going to be the best for the children. And what I want to do is just want to make sure that you guys understand, as a previous board, the decisions you made last year about keeping kids out of school for the majority of the year and the damage and the learning. And I really like the presentation around learning, because that's really what I'm hyper-focused on. We knew that learning took a critical it hurt very bad last year for every individual kid. You know, whether or not the basic scores went down, double, that's where we need to be. And we knew that was bad. So I really like we're gonna be in school. Now that we know with this year, we have an option with our mask. We know mask hurt. Mask has a direct relation on learning. It has physical, emotional, mental negatives to learning. So what your decision will do, if you make it required, you're gonna have a direct impact on my child's learning or all the other kids. So that's one of the things I really want to stress. This is not, optional. Make the parents decide, because we know that it hurts learning, okay? Also, what we know is across the country, including neighboring districts, people such as myself and people presenting today, and medical professionals, epidemiologists, everything came up, gave their presentation to the board, and their boards decided we really need to make it optional. So I'm really leaning on you guys to make sure you take all this in factor and concentrate on learning. The kids learning, that's it. Everything else is just noise, right? And we know that this hurts their learning. So please just consider that and remove any of the barriers for learning. So thank you.
Becky Forlan.
Good evening. So I am Becky Folan. I'm a parent and an educator, and I want more than anything for our kids to get back with some sense of normalcy. Last year at this time, many public agencies really stressed that kids should be back in school, and many kids were back in school, but our district delayed, and many districts around delayed. We delayed and we delayed. It didn't matter that private schools in some districts pushed forward and were successful without outbreaks. We waited as students continued to fall further behind. Eventually, we got students back into school using strategies to keep students and staff safe. But still, we cannot deny that students will come back this year, and they will be really behind, despite the tireless efforts of teachers and staff. I don't want to downplay that, because I know that teachers, myself as one, worked very hard last year to keep students engaged and doing the best that they could. We also know that as we enter this school year, we have a really great vaccine that's effective for all adults who wish to protect themselves from this virus. We also know that hand washing, proper ventilation, social distancing are really the most effective mitigation strategies to help stop this spread. Study after study show that students are not the main drivers of this disease. So we come to the topic of masks. Again, everyone talks about this. Masks are not, there is no clear-cut evidence that masks really are stopping this. Is it possible that they've helped? Yes, maybe, but it's not, there is no clear-cut evidence. And I hear people say, like, well, what's the big deal? It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother my kid. It's not that big of a deal. It'll help stop the spread. But as an educator who works with small children, it does matter. How are students really supposed to learn to read? How are they supposed to get those phonemic awareness skills and those phonics skills without seeing a teacher's face and learning how to read? How are they supposed to How are our English language learners supposed to become proficient readers and learners and speakers hearing muffled speech? How are our students with special needs supposed to understand language and understand facial expressions? I think by us just saying masks are no big deal really downplays the
30 seconds.
It just downplays the deficits and the I can't even think of the word. It really just downplays the effects that it's doing for lots of our children. So I think that we really need to consider, are we okay with our neediest students continuing to fall further and further behind by putting this mask on our children when they're really not the biggest drivers of this disease and they're not the ones that are most at risk? So this is why I'm really asking you to give us the option as parents. We know what our children need, and we ask you to let the parents make the choice. Thank you for our time.
Just please state your name.
At the mic.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Carrie Prodanoff. Thank you for hearing me speak today, and thank you for all of you supporting here for our kids today, because this is without a doubt a very emotional situation. And apologies, it's going to be a little difficult for me to get through, but it's been a very challenging year, to say the least. And I understand all of the things that you as educators have been doing to protect our kids and to feel that they're in a safe environment and they can learn and come back to school. However, it has been extremely disengaging to watch my son sit so closely to an iPad or, whatever, and to sit through various activities where I know he's not providing his best effort because we don't have that guidance inside of the classroom. He's not connected with his friends, and I apologize. This is all from the heart. It just comes from a lot of a built-up emotion that I've been dealing with working with our children and trying to put on a face for them as a mother every day to say it's going to be okay. Excuse me. And to tell them to be brave and everything will be fine. But I hate to lie to them because I don't know how long this is going to last. And they should have a choice because they are people and we were given a choice as adults, as our Constitution right to come here to speak and say, let our children be kids. Let them engage with their friends. And it's true, the suicide rates and all of the issues, they have gone up. My friend's a nurse practitioner, and she's like, it has triplified, it has amplified, it is out of control, and it's extremely sad what it has done, not only to us as people, as a society, but what it's done to these poor kids. I mean, I often have relapses of like, God, I miss being a kid and having all these things, and I think of my children like, are you going to sit and wonder like, oh, remember the pandemic we went through? I mean, it's very sad. And again, I'm very fortunate that you're taking the time to listen to us because this is an important issue. Make it an option. My kids spent all last summer at the park running around with other kids. Other schools or other park districts were letting their teams play baseball and running around and being kids, and nobody cared. And from what I saw, everybody was living their life and safely and doing what they could to be normal. Give them the option. Some parents are not going to be okay with it. That's okay. That's their choice. We want our children to live freely. That is their choice. So I just encourage you to please take this seriously and just
30 seconds.
Thank you. And to think about the kids, because it's very challenging for me to be brave for my child every day. And I will continue to go to bat for them and say, we're going to make this happen and make it right however we need to. If homeschooling is an option, we will have to make that choice because that's what it is. And I understand there are certain regulations and things that you have to abide by, but I also know that, our governor has also allowed the District of Illinois or the state to kind of speak freely when it comes to different schools because it's not a one-size-fits-all. So thank you for hearing me.
Would anybody else like to come speak before the board?
with me. Hello, my name is Agnieszka Batura. I have 2 students, 4th graders from Claremont School, and they want to say a word.
I'm tired of wearing these masks at my school. It's just tiring breathing and everything, so this should just go to garbage.
Hi, my name is Patrick Botero. I think we should stop wearing masks. For example, during gym, we still have to wear masks. When we get out of the gym, we're tired, we can't breathe, we're exhausted. Yeah, just forget the whole mask thing. Even you might not even realize how much money we spent on masks. At Walmart, for example, a pack of like Minnie Mouse masks is like $6. It's overpriced. So that's why I think. No, I don't know what I think. No, yeah, we don't want to wear masks, honestly. Just give us a choice to wear masks or not. We don't like wear, honestly. We don't need. Okay, I'm bad at commentary.
All right, thank you.
All right, well done.
Anybody else like?
Hello, I'm Marta. My son is in
Sorry, Martha,
Forest
your
View,
last name?
Pashlewska. And I want to make choice for my son. He's my only one child, and I want to do abuse for him because you choose. Half of you not even have a kid in the school age. So all those people not supposed to decide about our kids. My son last year spending time in the computer, have a quiet time when he was sitting and crying because he will have no friends, no teacher to ask questions, anything he cannot do. He was sitting, boring and crying. He was upset, he was mad, he was angry about everything you do to us and our kids. You was deciding for us how the doctors can sit here and not even speak a word. If the nurse know in the school they say the mask is not protect about the COVID, how the mask you wearing in your face, they not something have a proof. It's no a proof. It's will be make you safe. You cannot breathe. You will be have ammonia. Our kids will be sick because of your decision. My son will be go to Forest View, and not will be wear a mask. And nobody can force me to do it because this is my choice, this is my child, and this is his life and my life. I want to make a risk to make him sick and COVID, then be sick of this craziness you're doing for our kids. Let our kids be friends, have a teacher who see their faces and they know the teacher face. My son was scared to go to school. He was crying when he will have to go because he have to wear mask. The principal of Forest View make my son sitting in the school when he go back because they not let him eat lunch because he bring lunch from home. And the Forest View principal say he cannot eat his lunch because it's COVID. He have to eat this ugly, horrible stuff the school was providing, smelling of hand sanitizer. And my son was sitting in a mask when all was sitting and eating. The teacher was eating, the kids was sitting and eating without mask. So the kids can take mask off to eat, and they cannot sit in a desk and learn without mask. The COVID have a time
30 seconds.
to go and jump on someone. 10 people are safe, 11 not safe. The COVID walking around and counting people. They know it's a lunchtime and it's teaching time. It's craziness. Think about our kids because half of you don't even have a kids in the school anymore. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in front of the board?
My name is Karl Robinski. My name is Karl Rubinski. I have two kids actually that still go to school. One of them is in 7th grade or going to be. One is actually in high school. We were at just the District 214 meeting, and they decided to make masks optional because they decided that parents should decide what's best for their kids. I remember growing up and worrying about, you know, what are we going to do after school? Oh my God, I got to do homework. Those are the worries that I had when I was a kid. And it upsets me so much to actually see my kids to worry about, you know, when I'm walking home, is somebody's going to abduct me? Am I going to go to school and catch COVID? And I explained to them that some things you can protect yourself from, you know, make sure you walk in a group, make sure you don't, you know, go on your own and possibly get into trouble, always stay in a group. We found out that masks protect people because the government said so. No, we found out that masks don't protect people because there's no proven fact that they actually filter out the virus. Distance, you would have to be so far away. I'm this far away from you, and this is probably how we can protect each other from catching the virus. And at my age or your age or any of your age, if we catch it, we can possibly get sick. Kids, there's no kid that has died from COVID that didn't have a pre-existing condition. If I know that my kids have no pre-existing conditions, they have not had issues with their lungs, with their heart, with any other system in their body, I should be able to decide what's best for my kids. When my kids leave the house and they go to the schools in the district, I don't give up my parental rights the second they leave my house. They're out of my house and they're going into the school. I'm still their parent. I'm still there to decide what's right and wrong. When they make a mistake, I pay for it until the age of 18. Once they're 18, if they make a mistake, something illegal, something wrong, it's going to be their responsibility. At this point in time, I'm still their protector. I'm still the decision maker. And I want to just say that masks are not going to do anything for these kids, but make them actually more sick mentally than they've ever been. I have a lot of friends and family members in the medical field, and the stories that I've heard over the last 18 months are sickening in itself. Kids committing suicide.
30 seconds.
Kids going into deep depression. That's probably going to have an effect on them for the rest of their lives. We are social animals. We look at each other and our faces tell us everything about the other person. When you can't see somebody else's face, you don't know what they're thinking, you don't know what they're doing. Masks are not going to do anything but screw our kids up even more than they are right now. They need to get good education, and they need to basically have a childhood. Masks are not going to help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Karavis. My daughter goes to the junior high. And this last year was very, very difficult. She decided to stay home when they were supposed to go back. She didn't want to go back. And she has social problems as it is. And if you mask her up, it's just going to make it so much more difficult for her. And it is emotional because our kids are being masked, and they're told to be stayed 6 feet apart, 3 feet apart. How can you do this to them? They need to be kids. They need to be kids. I don't know what you guys are thinking of. And to test them every day? I agree. It's our decision. We're the parents. Let us be parents. Let us be parents. Let us decide what happens. I mean, if they want to wear a mask or not. Let us decide. Some of them are vaccinated. There's parents in here who are vaccinated who have to wear a mask. I thought the vaccination was supposed to save us from wearing the mask. Now we have to wear a mask? That doesn't make any sense. I'm telling you, you are ruining these kids. I don't know. You guys decide. I'm just telling you, you mask them, you're messing them up. You're messing them up. Okay?
We still have time for some more public comments. Anyone else wants to speak to the board? Just feel free to come up. Okay, with that, I think we'll go back to questions and what? Oh, sorry. It's okay.
Yeah, Katarzyna Dzik. I'm the mother of 3 kids at Claremont. They're beautiful girls, and I just want to say I'm against all masks. They don't work. If the doctor would be sick, he would do surgery. Would he come to work and still perform surgery, putting his mask on? I don't think so. They wouldn't allow him, because everybody would be sick. So it's the other way around. It just doesn't work. I don't believe in this, and just this is science. Masks don't work. Kids need to see each other. And last year, I knew that. And even when the kids were studying at home, my kids were studying with neighbors' kids, the other neighbors' kids, and we didn't wear masks at all year. March, April, May, when the pandemic was hitting, we were without the mask. None of us were sick. We never got tested. We were never sick, ever. Kids, adults, my neighbors, and a lot of my friends. We were being at playgrounds, kids were playing, and many people were at home closed. We were not. We never got sick. And I believe in immune system, and kids have really strong immune system. And if some parents want mask optional and they want to wear it, I respect it. Maybe they have somebody sick in the house, I can really respect it. So they can wear masks. My kids don't have to wear them, and I'm against it totally. Thank you.
Are you going to make a public? Are you going to make a public comment? Or are you going to make?
Just one quick comment.
Well, then-
I would just like to pay tribute to all of your children. All of the children who have been here tonight have just been wonderful, and it has not been an easy evening for any of these children. And you're very, very, very lucky to have such wonderful children, and I give you credit for what you have done to be such good parents. Your children are great.
I think it's about time for us to go back to questions and feedback since we're done with comments from the public. I do want to thank everyone for coming out and sharing their information. We are listening to you. We understand. And yes, most of us do have school-aged kids. Are we ready for questions? Yeah, us to the staff.
I have one, and I think I've brought this up before. If there is an opportunity to have like a hub where parents can get their kids vaccinated if they want to, I know other districts have done that. Is that something we're looking into?
Yes, we absolutely have opportunities for whether on-site or in partnership with other organizations to provide events for vaccinations, yes.
Just so I understand where we are in the point of the meeting, we are still asking any questions that we have of the SLT, and then what is the next step? Voting on the plan and then discussing the budget for next year? Is that the?
So we're still in the presentation 4.0.
Okay.
I agree with what has been just said by the two people about vaccinations, because I definitely believe vaccinations are the way to go for adults and older children. I think if we can possibly work something out through our junior highs so that our junior high children, those whose parents want them to become vaccinated, not everybody, would have a more convenient situation, and the parents from those families could use that same vaccination procedure. Elk Grove Village was so lucky because the mayor and the board provided a park district area, and pharmacists from the Jewel came over, and all seniors and all adults have been vaccinated who wanted to be in Elk Grove Village. It's wonderful convenience. If you have to get online and wait to get an appointment, you just give up. So if we could come up with something so that you, if you haven't been vaccinated already, or your older children who would be available for vaccinations could do it, I think it would be a wonderful idea.
You know, I want to make some comments, more commentary on the plan. My name is Robert Mancia, for those that don't know me. I am a parent of a student in the district. And as a member of the Board of Education, I like being very transparent with how I vote certain ways, and I want to make sure that everyone understands where I come from, and you can check my math on that, you know, so I want to be very clear. You know, so as far as the plan goes, you know, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that all students return to school with masks. You know, these are the doctors that we call in the middle of the night when our kids are sick and we don't know what to do. And that's what I think I want to stress tonight, is that we are not doctors on this board. We are not experts when it comes to viruses or disease. We are parents. Most of us on this board have kids that go to these schools that are impacted by the decisions that we make. And over the past year and a half, it's been our kids, all the kids, on all the schools, that have had to make the biggest sacrifices when it comes to COVID. And I want our kids to return to a normal day of school. I do. But the question is, or the question that I have, is, are we there yet? And I don't know. That's the question. That's the question that I have, is, are we there yet? That's my question. You can have your questions, but that's my question, is, are we there yet? And I'm not sure. A month ago, on the 4th of July, the positivity rate in this part of Cook County was 0.4%, almost nothing. A month later, 3.6%. A month ago, on the 4th of July, the transmission rate of COVID in this community, in this part of Cook County, was low. Today, substantial. Things change. What are these numbers going to look like in a month? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. So the plan that was presented today takes into account what the CDC says, recommends, Illinois State Board of Education recommends, the Illinois Department of Public Health recommends, and the Cook County Department of Public Health, what their recommendation is. And that was to return to school with masks. You know, so that is what the recommendations were. The plan that is presented today, in my opinion, keeps schools open, drastically eliminates the need for quarantines and remote learning, concentrates on social emotional learning, family engagement, and gets our kids back to school to a normal day. Because it has been since March of 2020, the last time that they had a normal day of school. I support the plan, me personally, but the plan itself is not written in stone. And I would hope, and I would ask the superintendent and the administration, that we continue to monitor, and we continue to adjust, and we continue to adapt, so we can get back to normal. This is just the way we are starting. This does not mean we're going the whole year. I hope not, you know, but this is just the way we are starting. So the plan that was presented today was reasonable to me, and I support it. And I owe it to everyone, not just the people that are here in this room, but everyone that is listening to us on YouTube, to understand why I vote a certain way. So I just wanted to say that because, like I said, I am also a parent of a student in this district and a member of this board, and I need to make the decisions that are in the best interest of all students and staff and everyone that lives in the community. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I actually have a quick question.
No. Nope, sorry, we can't take any questions. I think Robert brought up a point that I want to address is the ability to change the plan and change the way we're going. Last year, when we voted not to bring kids back to school, it takes a while to make those changes, to bring kids back and to arrange busing and meals and all the other items. Where this plan that the district has proposed starts out with masks. I haven't decided if I'm quite for there yet or not, but what it does give us is the flexibility to make changes quickly based on what is happening in our schools. Our goal and my goal is I want the schools to stay open. We do not want to go back to remote learning. And if we have to go with masks, we need to think what's best for all students. I understand that many parents believe they know what's best for their kids, and I completely understand that. I have 2 kids that are going to school. One doesn't want to wear a mask, one wears a mask, and they fight at home about it. But I also look at those parents that want their kids in school and are willing to put their kids with masks on, that they could be put in jeopardy of being quarantined because of other students that are not masked. And that is the part that concerns me, that those families that feel it's important to have their kids masked in school are willing to do that for their kids to be in school. So with that, I will be supporting the plan of masks being required in school. Sorry, we cannot take questions from the.
So I have a few questions. My main concern is the quarantines. Our goal is to get all students into school and to stay in school to the greatest extent possible. You said the SHIELD program isn't up and running yet. Do we have a timeline on when that will be available?
3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks, okay. And do we have a sense for how many of our junior high students are vaccinated?
We do not, but we'll be collecting that information soon.
Collecting the information, okay. Have we looked into the test to stay strategy that's allowed by the ISB?
We have. There are a couple pieces that we have to figure out before we look into that. We need to work to get our screening testing up and running. Right. And we also need to confirm with Cook County Department of Public Health because there's still local health department decision-making with that test to stay
That was my main question,
option.
is because it's ultimately their decision whether we get to use that. So for people who don't know, there's a test to stay system where instead of an out-of-school quarantine, you could have a student who was exposed, tested on days 1, 3, and 7 or whatever, and they wear a mask and they stay in the classroom. And so that's one possibility of a way to deal with this in the future once we have our testing system up and going. Do we know how many students never attended class last year? Do we have a sense for what our maximum percentage was in class?
At the end of the year, we had most students, about 1,800 stayed out. You know,
out of 6,000.
About 6,400.
About 6,400. So we have never operated at full capacity.
Correct.
Okay, so those are the reasons why, and again, I agree with many of the things said today, but I think that the quarantines, which we have no control over, and the time it takes to get this testing system up and going are critical. Bringing all the students back into classrooms is the most important thing we can do right now. And for that reason, I'm going to support the plan with the understanding that we're going to adapt. Once the testing system is up and running, there have been many creative solutions I've heard of to reduce mask usage or other things. I fully support us going quickly into those as we move forward. Thank you.
This has been really a struggle. I had 4 girls go through this district, and they had a wonderful experience. And they didn't have to deal with the things that your kids do. They absolutely did not. The last year has been so difficult, and before that, we had to deal with curriculum, and we had all kinds of things that my kids never had to deal with. Do I want your kids back in school? 100%. When I was a teacher, having those kids in the classroom was the most amazing experience I could ever have. I loved it. I miss it. I only quit to be on the board. Otherwise, I'd still be teaching today. Do I think that the teachers and everybody has had such difficult decisions to make? 100%. Dominic, I remember you. That was I had such a joy teaching. I want your kids back there, but I don't want anything to happen to them. When something happens to one of your kids, it doesn't just happen to you. It happens to those teachers that have had a relationship with those kids. And they never want to see you lose or have anything serious happen to your kids. I want to keep them as safe as possible, and it is going to be up to you whether you want to have them vaccinated or not. That's totally up to you. And when that option is out there, that's also up to you. And I know the mask thing, it's miserable. I get it. But can we start, just start, and then go from there as fast as we possibly? I'm not asking for an answer. I'm really not. I'm not asking. I'm just telling you how I feel. If we can start and then move as fast as we can out of it because we see things are working well, then that is what we're asking for. And that's why I will start, but as fast as we can get out of these masks, I'm out. I want them off your kids.
That's why you kept promising all last year. The kids were out of school for how many months? We're working on it, we're adapting, we're doing this, we're doing that.
Let's keep moving on.
Please, we're holding a meeting here. This is our discussion. You had your chance at public comment, please. If you can't refrain from talking, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, or we'll go into recess again. I understand we're talking about your kids, but we are talking about your kids up here, and this is our discussion. I appreciate you please being quiet. Thank you.
What's next? What do we do? Do we vote? What's the?
I think I do want to add one more thing into this whole thing, and it comes from a different perspective. It was mentioned briefly in the presentation. We have prepared, the schools have been prepared well for the kids coming back for safety purposes. We have spent a lot of time this summer and last summer working on the HVAC systems. So that will be a great benefit to keeping our kids in school. We did, our staff, our maintenance staff, our custodial staff did a great job keeping our kids safe last year. And hopefully this year we will do a better job and keep these kids safe so we can get back to school, stay in school, and be without masks at some point. But please, give us the time to get this and make sure we get this done right, because we do not want schools closed.
No, these are empty promises that you
Please, please, no more comments, or we'll stop right now. Okay. Yep.
Get to the vote so we can move on to the discussion of the budget.
Yep.
Let's just keep going.
Thanks for nothing.
Just one thing I want to say.
Disappointment, that's all you are. You're fired.
Let's just keep going.
Sorry, I'm going to get the action items so that we can go ahead.
I got it.
making a motion?
I'll make the motion. Be it resolved by the Board of Education.
Do we need a vote on it first, or we need to, the motion is second, yeah, never mind.
Yep. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, Community Consolidated School District 59, Cook County, Illinois, as follows with respect to the opening and operation of the district offices, facilities, programs, and schools for the 21-22 school year. The plan for the opening and operation of the district offices, facilities, programs, and schools for the 21-22 school year, substantially in the form presented by the superintendent and entitled 2021.2022 Return to School Plan and dated August 2nd, 2021, is hereby approved. Number 2, the superintendent and the superintendent designees are hereby authorized and directed to implement and enforce the plan and are further authorized to require students, staff, parents, visitors, and other participants in the district program to comply with the program and with the directives of the superintendent and the superintendent's designees implementing and enforcing the plan. The superintendent is therefore authorized to modify the plan from time to time to conform to the requirements of or guidance from any entity with authority over the district, including but not limited to the Governor of Illinois, the Illinois Department of Health, the Illinois State Board of Education, the Illinois High School Association, and the Cook County Department of Public Health. And as otherwise appropriate to facilitate the operation of the schools, of the safety of students, staff, visitors, and other participants in the district's programs. Any substantive changes to the plan shall be made in consultation with the president of the board and then promptly reported to the board, which may affirm, modify, or disapprove of the changes. The changes shall, however, remain in full force and in effect until such time as the board acts unless otherwise required by law. This resolution and the plan may be modified from time to time pursuant to number 3 above, are adopted and are to be implemented and enforced in the exercise of the discretionary powers granted by the board by sections 10-20 and 10-20.5 of the Illinois School Code and any other applicable law. The plan constitutes rules adopted by the board pursuant to section 10-20.5 of the school code, which shall be filed in the district's central administrative office and posted on the district's website. In accordance with board policy 4.180, pandemic preparedness, the plan and the authority granted to the superintendent and the superintendent designee by this resolution supersede any policy or other rule of the board to the extent any such policy or rule is inconsistent with the plan. Number 5, the resolution shall be enforced and upon adoption. Therefore, be it resolved that on the second day of August 2021, this Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education hereby approves the 21-22 Return to School Plan and COVID-19 Board Policy.
I second. Okay, the vote. Lang is absent.
Nay.
Oh, sorry. Lang is absent. Mencia?
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher? Aye. Espino?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
All right. Into the discussion of the public hearing. Or we got 7.02. Yeah.
We're going to turn it over to our, for our budget presentation.
Glad to be here. Thank you. Let's talk about the 21-22 tentative to final budget.
Since we do not have students any longer present in the room, those who are vaccinated may choose to remove their masks.
I feel guilty almost doing it.
Better be good, Ron.
I'll try. Thank you. So if we go to the next slide. Again, we saw this over the past board meeting, the budget adoption process. There was a general review of the tentative budget. This budget was, in particular, even more so interesting to put together than last year's, just because of the unknowns that we've seen. The resolution, though, was put together for public display on June 7th. July 1st was the start of our fiscal year. It was placed in display, and also Illinois School Code required the budget to be placed on display, so we did so. Today, we're reviewing any changes. This is the public hearing, and then a week from today, we are hoping to adopt the final budget. So here's the highlights. COVID-19 expenses to keep the schools open. I think that was mentioned before, the tents that we are looking into purchasing for every building. We're looking at approximately 18 of them, actually. The PPE, any sort of increments for staff members so that we can ensure that our students are spaced out appropriately. Any sort of filter renewal. I know Mr. Reed made a great comment about our filtration. We have our air ducts that have been top-notch compared to other places. Also, potential facility maintenance and upgrades, flooring, windows, upkeep, anything like that that is something unforeseen. Homes, flooding, and insurance. We're not getting every dollar just yet, so we are currently fighting with Liberty Mutual. That's typical with an insurance company. So we've had to front a good portion of our own dollars at this time, and that is built in. And then the resource allocation plan, which we did for additional staffing and professional development. So if you look at the changes from the tentative to the final, there were additional claimed funding from ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 that are going to go into the education fund due to the additional supplies. We're talking about resources, learning loss, and so forth. IMRF and FICA, we moved some funding over to cover the expenses. Other expenses for the Ed Fund, other COVID-19 purchases so that we can return to school safely. Salary updates for non-negotiated and administrative staffing. And then for operation and maintenance, we looked at purchases related to cleaning, sanitation, any sort of projects pertaining to building upkeep. I mean, we're even looking into courtyards. And then, again, the homes placeholders for flooding is part of that O&M fund. Transportation fund, they also did salary updates for admin staff. IMRF and FICA, we increased the expenses because once the salaries were increased, IMRF and FICA do increase. Capital projects fund, that has been like a great opportunity for us to put more of our actual projects in that particular area and not O&M. And then health, life, safety, the construction billing update, it was being updated since June, and so that's when you see the initial budget was at approximately $10 million, and now the final that we're looking at about 2.7. So here's the final piece that you want to look at for the operating funds. This is what tells us if we're balanced or not. We are balanced. Education fund, we're looking at a surplus of $2.3 million, but if you look at the O&M and transportation fund, those are the two in particular. O&M, we're seeing a negative $310,000 due to some unforeseens that we are anticipating, so that might not be a negative. And then transportation, last year we did not do much with it, so when we do the straight transportation claim, we're not going to get much reimbursed from the prior year. As a result, assuming that the expenses are on task with a 5% increase in the contract, we're looking at this year being a negative almost $1.9 million difference just in that fund. Now, I think Dr. Sager had a good question about that in terms of what about in years to come? We do expect to get the reimbursements for each and every year for the next year. So if we are running at an expense of $7.1 million this year, like it says in transportation, our revenues for the state will come back more so to what we're normally used to, barring proration. So that's why you see right there an operating total of all these $482,909.
happy to see that the working cash fund has not gone down, but can you tell me, because I can't remember, what normally is our working cash fund?
We currently have $12 million in working cash.
Okay, very good.
That's
our godsend, that's our savior. I mean, that's what pulled this district out of a terrible hole when we were in it, when the working cash fund was established, so I don't want to ever see that go away.
The district's fund balance has been healthy, and it has been very beneficial, especially with the times that we're living in today.
And another thing, I want to know, the updated and the new camera system that we have for security for the schools, what fund does that come out of?
That is the capital projects fund, the 60 fund. So that is fully budgeted for, as well as the drinking fountains, the bottle water fountains, as well as additional work that may be done at some of the facilities if it needs to happen. Just, anticipatory.
I don't need an exact figure, but how far apart are we with the insurance at homes with the flooding?
Well, they took me off the emails temporarily. I wasn't very nice to them, and I had mentioned to Liberty that if there were issues and we couldn't open school on time, that not only would the Board of Education and the community know about how rough this was, but everyone in every district would know as well. Mm-hmm. So then Willis, and of course now I'm saying it, of course, in public. So Willis Watson is our group, and they're doing their due diligence right now. Mm-hmm. We probably claimed back $450,000 that has not been accounted for just yet.
Okay.
So I will keep the board abreast of that.
Okay.
And then for the transportation fund, you said in the future we don't expect that deficit, but last year we had a surplus as well, right? Was that comparable to this 1.8, so the fund is going to sort of balance itself out over 2 years?
That is correct, but I was trying to make sure that the ed fund kind of, so those four funds are the ones that ISB really looks at. So if you look at trans this year, kind of like you're saying, Dr. Sager, being a negative 1.8, we wanted to try and balance as best we can, so we had to do some sort of surplus work in the ed fund, and that's kind of where we got to it. Our funds are, again, they're healthy. We're efficient.
So before the meeting, you're gonna give us a full budget with all the line items and stuff like that before next week's meeting, right? So we can look it over?
Absolutely. I can do it in the Friday update.
That'd be great, yeah.
Excellent.
Well, won't it be attached to the agenda won't it be
Yeah, it would also be in the board packet.
Yeah,
but I mean, the more times is better.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Appreciate staying around, Janet. All right.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Do we need to do the 7.02 now? Or that we good?
The recommendation.
Yeah. That's not an action item now, is it?
Mm-hmm.
But we're not approving till next night. And it's a recommendation to change the tentative budget. To the tentative. And then the budget at the next. Got it.
Somebody want to make the motion on this one?
So these are changes that'll be reflected in the final budget. Yeah. So my only question was on the health, life, safety line, where it's 10 million estimated and then a change to 2 million. Was that just due to timing of payments this year? I don't understand that one.
That was. So when we first put together the tentative budget, it was still about, I think it was like 10.2. So then when we're wrapping up, as you know, for not only the vestibule work, but phase 2. And rather than guess, that was one of those funds where it's not operating. And so my feeling was we'll just leave it as where it is presently until we see the actual number to put in the final budget.
No, as presented below.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Be it resolved that on the second day of August 2021, the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 59 approves the following changes to the 2021-22 budget for purposes of adoption. Said changes to be attached to these minutes as part of the record of deliberation over the same as presented below.
I will second that.
Thanks. Okay. Petrielli, aye. Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang is absent. And Mencia.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
We making a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Hold on, the public hearing, never mind. God, wow, I jump ahead. Oh, my lord.
We're not ready yet?
No,
Okay.
we gotta open up for public.
Well, nothing's been regular tonight, so.
No, I'm off my back. I'm off.
And it's strange to me, all the emails that we got prior to this meeting, we had many who were in favor of masks and talked to us about it, but none of them came to this meeting,
No.
which is very interesting.
Well, that's the importance of reading our emails. Everybody that gets emails, please read them. I mean, they didn't maybe feel, I mean, I know a bunch of them expressed concern they didn't feel comfortable coming here.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
All right, so I just read the recommendation then? Okay, so I'm gonna make the administration recommends that the meeting be open for public comments and/or requests for consideration prior to the adoption of the budget. Resolutions to open and to close the hearings are now included.
Okay, all you budget people.
Has there anybody been here to speak toward the board?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay.
It stole the first from me.
I'll second it. It's one of the most important things we do.
Okay. Motion made by
Stand up and
Robert,
speak.
seconded by Dr. Sager. At 8:29 p.m. If we're going to keep it there so I can read it, that the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education meeting be opened on this date, August 2nd, 2021, for a public hearing on the proposed budget for the 2021-2022 year, and that the secretary shall record the time as 8:29 p.m. Joe seconded.
Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang is absent. Lang is absent. Mencia?
Aye.
And Petrielli, aye. And the motion passes. Resolution passes.
So now, if there's anyone that wants to speak on the budget, they can.
Yes.
Anybody here want to speak on the budget? Ann? Anybody?
John?
There we go.
Hi, Ann Wayne, DA president. You guys are wonderful people, and I thank you for all that you've done. I know this was a tense time, but you guys are fantastic, and thank you for all that you do for us, and the students in our community. I'm truly amazed at your dedication, because I know this is a volunteer job. None of you are being paid despite popular belief, so I just want to reiterate that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Good rest of your night.
Thank you. Keep up the
Yeah,
good
say
work.
something about the
Nice
budget.
work on the budget.
Yes, thank you. If there's nobody else that would like to speak on the budget, should someone make a motion to move to close the public hearing? Is that what we do now?
Resolution 2?
Yeah, to close it.
Okay. All right, so resolution 2 is who's speaking on it? I'll do it.
I'll second it. I don't have it in front of me.
Thanks, Randy. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Motion, and the time is 8:31. Okay, so, motion made by Patty Petrielli, seconded by Randy Reed, that the hearing on the 2021-22 proposed budget be closed and the secretary shall record. The time is 8:31 p.m. Randy, or Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Espino.
Aye.
Lang is absent. Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli, aye, and the motion passes. Or the resolution. Okay.
Yep. Can I get a motion on adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
After 2.5 hours of mostly.
Okay, and we are adjourning at 8:32.
It's right in front of you.
You don't have to say that.
Yeah, you do.
Be it resolved that on the second day of August, 2021, the Community Consolidated School District Board of Education meeting is adjourned.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Espino.
Aye.
Lang is absent. Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli, aye, and Reed.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
And we'll